when you've created this like face or external view based on what you think is going on outside and what other people want, it's just like you've put a great big mask on or a mirror, and they're just seeing what else they're seeing out there. They're not actually seeing the real you.
Yeah,
And
so
so to
true.
have the courage to step into that, I think is the key.
Hey, I'm Megs, and welcome to the Free to Be You podcast. I am an identity and alignment coach who is passionate about helping you move into the second chapter of your life as the freest, most self-expressed version of who you really are. If there's one thing I know for sure, it's that when you decide to go on this journey and rediscover you, you are going to need people around you who are going to encourage you to keep moving forward and keep choosing yourself. I have created a free community of women who are doing just that. It's called the Freed to Rediscover You group. It's over on Facebook. The link is in the show notes below this episode. I would love to see you there. I would love to support you on your journey to moving through self-abandonment and into full self-expression. My guest today is Jessica Osborn. She's a strategy coach for women running coaching, consulting, or professional online businesses who want a fulfilling, high-income biz in part-time hours. She helps them simplify their strategy and get into alignment so they are magnetically attracting their dream clients. This is going to be such a valuable episode if you are somebody who's running your own business. And even if you're not, you're going to learn how you can become more magnetic. Jessica, welcome to the Free to Be You podcast. I'm very happy that you are joining us today because we're going to be talking about a slightly different topic than I've had on the show so far. But I love that you're a fellow Aussie as well, because I've been interviewing a lot of people in the US and overseas. So it's nice to bring it back home again.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I love chatting with you, and really keen to get into this topic today because I think it's something you and I both are like so aligned with, and I'm excited to bring it to the audience too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, alignment. That's what I'm all about. So why don't we start this off with you telling us a little bit about your story in your own words, and then we can segue into what we're going to talk about. I know that you are a fellow Aussie, but where are you in the world? And tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, I'm on the Sunshine Coast of Queensland. So Queensland's obviously well known for the Great Barrier Reef and all of that kind of stuff, but we're not quite as far up as that. Like you, I'm a beach person. And even though I've lived in London, I've lived in many places, even Austria, totally landlocked, I am drawn back to the beach every time. So this is my happy place. This is where I love to be. You asked me a bit about my story. I'm like, well, how long do we have?
I used to say the same thing.
Like, that's what happens when you get older, right? So what I do right now is I'm a coach, marketing strategy coach. I work with other coaches and people who provide either a consulting or done for you service. So it's quite specific. You know, they're very much alike. Have services that they package and provide, usually online. And what I do I say marketing and everyone instantly thinks of like, oh, Instagram and email and all of the things. It's like, actually, that's not where I sit in all of the visual stuff. Although I've done it all in my career, it's the strategy is where I work with my clients on, because this is the piece that underpins everything that you do in your entire business. And without the strategy, none of the tactical stuff that you're doing actually works. So I help them get really clear on, who they are, what is that value that they're bringing to their clients in the market, actually create a really strong position, have an offer that is not only saleable, but is also profitable and works for their life. So this is where alignment for me comes in 100%, because if it's not aligned to you, you're creating a game you just cannot win in your business. And that to me is so important, because business isn't just about to make money. You're not just creating a new job for yourself. More than likely, if you have a business, you've gone into it because you've got a passion, a reason that you want to help other people, an impact you want to make. And if you've created a game you cannot win by having a service offering that's going to take you too long to deliver for what you're bringing in, or you're attracting the wrong sort of clients, you're really out of alignment with your entire purpose to begin with. And it's not going to last very long when you're trying to play that game. So I am so passionate about that. And I guess the third part of it is then, well, once you've got those building blocks, then how do you package it together and put it out there so that you are magnetically attracting the right clients? Something else I talk about all the time and I love is ditch the hustle. Like, doing more does not mean that you get more in. You're just doing all of this activity. I call it, you're on the marketing treadmill. You can be running on that treadmill for as long as you like with nothing happening, and just running more, doing more hours on it, doing more things, more posts. That is not going to change the game if it's not working. Like, yeah, it's where you need to dive below into the strategy and really connect and get this alignment happening so that it's simple. And what boggles my mind, not really boggles, I mean, I know it can be true, but most of my clients get really surprised when they do this work before they've even got out there and doing anything. They're like, well, now I need a plan of what I'm going to do in my marketing. But they already have clients coming to them. I've had that happen, 2 conversations in the last week, and they're like, I haven't even started actually doing anything yet. And these people, my ideal client has already popped up, and I've had a conversation and we're starting to work together. And I'm like, see how easy it can be when you are aligned, when you know what you want, when you know what you offer, and you're sitting in that place of power. You actually do magnetically attract the people who are right for you. And it can be that simple. So I love to show people how it can be simple. And then, of course, we do need to do something in our business to help bring people in. It doesn't just all come through the ether, but it can be so much less effort than what I think the general word on the street seems to be. Everyone's like, you've got to work hard and you've got to, put in all of these hours to make something happen. It's like, well, actually the best thing you could be doing is the thinking and actual alignment, and then what it is not, who it is not, all of the things that help you get more specific. So that's a very long-winded story. I went off down a tangent there. You asked me a little bit about my story, like how did I even come to do this? Well, I spent 20 years in marketing for businesses, like as a job, as an employee, before I started this business. And then, I've been there, I've done it all. I've literally executed on every single part of marketing. I ran the whole department, the whole team. So I've been there and done it all. I've kind of seen what works and what doesn't. And I've also had those insights as to when it really clicks. And, one of the interesting things was taking a startup company. The last one I worked for was a startup. I was the first marketing person. I was employee number 14 in the whole business. And taking that from being a startup to $1 billion company within 6 years was down to actually knowing, right, we're just 100% clear on who we're talking to and who we're not, and being very specific in our marketing strategy with what we were doing, what we were saying, who we're attracting, because it was a higher price, more premium product than what was out there on the market. And it just goes to show you that when you do dial in and sit in your authority, you magnetically attract the business. You magnetically grow because it's clear, they're clear that you're right for them.
I love how passionate you are. And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How when we get asked like who we are, what we do, we tend to start with the end, which you have. And what I think is really interesting and what would be really good to unpack with you is like, how did you get here though? Because I knew so like you've got your background in marketing and you've ran big companies and that kind of thing. So transitioning from that corporate type of life into now running your own show and being more of a solopreneur, like what has that transition been like for you, and like what made you make that decision?
Yeah, I love that question. Thank you for asking. I think I was one of those people, probably most people can relate, where you grow up and you sort of doing the things. So, I finished school, I went to university, I wasn't totally linear, because I did then decide to go to London for a year, which turned into 3 years. And then I came back, did a bit more of the degree, then I went over again. So anyway, but I started working in marketing even before I'd finished the degree. And I followed that path of, work hard, move your way up. But I got up to head of marketing comms. As I said, my last role, I was reporting into the CEO. I was sort of at the top of my career trajectory, unless I decided to become a CEO. And I was there and I was like, well, is this it? Like, I kind of thought that it would be more and more exciting and I'd be more into it. And then I was looking at the CEO and, their life, and at the same time I had children. And so I think you get a lot of different perspectives when you have kids. And I just was like, I don't want that. Like, that is not what I want. And it was a massive shake-up, I think, to me, because I was like, that's what I'd always thought I'd wanted, was, to climb up and progress. But interestingly, I suppose I'd always, as a child and as a teen, thought I would run my own business. And one of my very first job interviews, which I didn't think I'd get, but the guy said, what do you want to do in 5 years' time? Or where do you see yourself? And I said, running my own business. And I said it back then. So I think I've always had that in the back of my mind, and had just never found the right idea. But what was the nail in the coffin for me, I guess, was actually my kids and the lifestyle, and what I was actually going to have to sacrifice and give up to continue where I was. And I didn't see that I was really benefiting very much more. It really had no fulfillment to be making money for shareholders and just, going through the motions and dealing with all of the stuff in the office and the corporate nonsense that goes on. I was like, this really is not lighting me up. I'm not getting to do what I love. I'm doing what other people want me to do. And it was soul sucking. It really was. Yeah. I think I lost huge parts of myself in that, down to, first maternity leave, when I eventually got up the courage to tell them that I was pregnant. The CEO said to me, oh, well, don't worry, we'll have a job for you when you get back. And I was like, what? You'll have a job for me? Like, I'm sorry, I have a job, and I am not intending to not do that because I have a child. Like, what are you thinking? But that was the writing on the wall, I think, with what they were perceiving. Someone who was having a baby and maybe a young family, what they would be capable of. And their doubt and distrust in me, just without even any proof of me not being able to do my job, because I, came back and then continued to grow their results. I sort of fought it for a while. I thought I could show them. Yeah. And I realized I was fighting a losing battle. So it wasn't a glass ceiling. It's what I call the maternal wall. I battled against. I got put in this box. You're now a mother. You have other priorities. That must mean that you're not as good as your job. And it just sort of diminished even further, I guess, fulfillment in that role. And it, I kind of went, well, I'm not standing for this. This is just ridiculous. Yeah, I'm not doing it anymore. So yeah. So I made them make me redundant, which was good outcome for me. And it was sort of, at the time, I'd already started the business while I'd been on mat leave with baby number 2. And it was scary though, when that happened, a lot of tears were shed. I had internal battles because I was letting go of something I'd known for 20 years. I'd had this career, I'd built it up. That was sort of part of my identity and who I was. And yeah. Oh my God, it was massive. I was very upset with even just how it all ended. And it took me a while, I think, to even though I made the choice, and even though I was like, that's it, and I'm not standing for it, my confidence internally, I think, was still shattered, because I hadn't been able to prove to them that I was as good, if not better, than I had been pre-kids. Like, why should that change anything? And I just was really against that. But that's, I guess, for me, is what beneath and drives the purpose of me and my business, and why, for me, it's about the lifestyle. Like, I'm doing this because I wanted to have the time with my kids. I wanted to drop them off at school, pick them up after school, take them to the activities, be able to be there if there was any problem, they needed help with anything, or what, like I'm not in the city an hour's commute away and not able to get there and stressing out and all of the things. I made that choice because I wanted to have that lifestyle. And then so it would be a completely out of integrity if I created a business that was taking me away from them and working super long hours and all of the things. So it's been like the driving force behind me and my business and how I structured it. And also, I guess that's why I've gravitated towards serving women primarily. I have had a few male clients who also align with that value of less work, more life. But it's, what I was able to do because I had that as the strategy and what I wanted as the end game, then it's come into how I created my business and the way that I put it together, and also how I run it and what I choose and what I don't choose.
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest thing that stands out for me is that you weren't realized that what you were doing was not who you were anymore. Like, it was you for a long time, and then there's this sense of, holy shit, this is not what I want anymore, and now I have to make a change. And so that's a big part of why I have this show and why I'm passionate about what I do, because I think that a lot of people I know say, I think a lot, but I actually know. I know that a lot of people, or a lot of women in particular, who are to that age around 40. For most of us, our kids are grown up, but it doesn't have to be that. There's a lot of transitions that we go through. And one of them can be that we just realize that whatever it is we've been putting all of our time into needs to come to an end, and we need something else. Look at any area of life and find that. What is really hard, and what I think a lot of people struggle with, and this is where I like to meet people, is when they're at that transition point and they've got to find the courage to make that choice. I want to make sure that what they choose next and what they step into next is actually in alignment with who they are now. And most of us cannot answer that question. For me, when someone asks me, who are you? What's your story? I know who I am. I'm not what I do. I'm not my business. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I am lucky enough to be doing something that is 100% in alignment with who I am, but it's not who I am. And so I love to help people answer that question. Who am I? We're more than just a sum of the things we do. We're more than just a mum. We're more than just, what we have been doing. And to top it off, we're not the same as we were when we were 20 and 30. When we're 40, and we're not going to be the same when we're 50 and 60. We are constantly evolving and changing, and our identity and our sense of self is a fluid thing. So that reinvention that you went through is what I really want to kind of dig in with you, to kind of show people that are listening, show the women that are listening, that we can start afresh. We can start at that next chapter, and we can start something new. Or maybe we're doing something right now and we realize that it's not quite lighting us up like we want it to. We can make a shift, and you're a perfect example of that. So I'd love to dig into that with you if we can, like the feeling that you have while you're in it, and then on the other side now, I'm sure are completely different. Like what did it feel like to you when you realized that what you had, where you were, was not where you wanted to be anymore? Like, because I think what happens is we feel it before we know it. You know what I mean? We feel that misalignment. So what was that like for you, kind of having that realization, and then like obviously stepping into reinventing?
It's interesting because I think I'd know once I became really present to it and had sort of brought it into the consciousness of my brain. I'd known it for a long time. Like, I'd known it for years. I'd known that I wasn't happy and I wasn't where I needed to be, and that I was sort of done there. But I was holding on to it. And I think this is like part of what we innately do, because we hold on to what's familiar, what's comfortable, where we're meant to be. It was all of that kind of pre-programming, conditioning that we've had of, well, no, but this is where I'm meant to be. And it took, actually, I had a friend that, I hired her originally in London, and then we became friends, and then I hired her again in Australia. And so she was in my team But, she was so much of a partner to me. And she just said to me, Jess, what are you doing? Like, you're not even happy here. Why don't you just leave? Like, she's like, you've got so much to give. You've got so much skills, and you're just being wasted here in this role with these people who are, there is no space for you to grow. And I was like, damn it. She said what I've kind of been thinking and knowing without actually admitting it to myself. And I think that was, to me, the turning point of like, yeah, all right, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to try. And it was less scary for me to make that change because I did it as I went on maternity leave. Like, I actually pushed the button on this business while I was still in hospital with my second baby. Just had her. And I was like signing up with someone to help me create my website and brand and get it out there. And so I kind of, it felt like I gave myself the space to do it. But, as you mentioned, there's a lot to work through because I still had the security blanket. I was on maternity leave, so I was going back. And I extended my leave till the maximum. And then I went back, and going back, it was, I just knew I was not in the right place. I had the feelings inside my stomach, and it wasn't nervousness about, oh no, am I going to fit back in? It was actually like, I am in the wrong place. I am not. I'm done with this. And it felt like I was actually turning back a chapter in my life and going back to somewhere that I'd left, because I'd already left it emotionally and mentally in that time I'd been on maternity leave and I'd started my business. And I already had clients I was working with. I already had a growing audience. Like, it was early days, but I had something I'd created, and it just felt, there was a safety blanket I was holding on to. And then I ripped it off. And there's a lot of fear in that, I guess. A lot of emotion comes up because your body's going, well, your brain is probably crying out, no, like, that's the safety. And your body's saying, yes, you just need to get rid of it. And it was interesting because I think I got tested about whether that was the right decision about 2 months after that.
We always get tested.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. And I got headhunted by this other company to come and head up their marketing, and it would have been a really great role. I probably would have jumped at if I had been previous me. I thought, well, I'll humor it. I'll just go and see. Like, I'm never going to say no to something up front. And there was always that little voice in the back of my head. Well, you can always get a job if it's not working as well as you thought it would. And yeah, you can. You can always choose at any time. So I went to the interview, and I started shaking in the interview. So my body had this crazy, like a traumatic response to actually being there. And the guy thought I was really nervous. I wasn't nervous. I was feeling cold, but I was shaking. And I left thinking, there is no way on earth, I don't care how much they pay me, there is no way I'm taking that job. And that to me was an absolute confirmation that I was on the right path, that I'd done the right thing. And that kind of really settled in my mind that I'd made the right choice and moved forward.
Yeah, I love
There's something else I guess I wanted to say about, because, we think about we're starting new and afresh. And I think it's hard not to do this. I think we all do it. We're starting a new business. We're new and it's brand new and we're a newbie and all of these things. And we forget what we're bringing with us. I started my business after working for 20 years in corporate. I was not new to business. I was not new to marketing. I mean, I'd even had a business I was already running, which I kept on forgetting that, I even had that experience. But, I was like, why am I treating myself like a newbie? I'm actually not a newbie. I'm not fresh out of school, starting a business with zero experience and nothing. I have got so much I'm bringing to this. Yes, my business may be new, but I am not new. And I think there's a huge differentiation there that I'd love anyone, because I was around that age of 40 when this was all happening. And, don't make yourself feel like you're new, because you're not. You're just stepping into a new place, but you're bringing with you everything that you've known and experienced. And all of that, I believe, was actually preparing you for it. So I don't think I could have started the business and got to where I got and been who I could be without the experiences I'd had to get me there.
Such a
I
good
had
point.
so much to offer. And so, it happened at the right time. It happened at the right time for me. I'd gone down that path as far as I could go. I'd hit that sort of dead end wall thinking,
Yeah.
I don't see where else I can go to here, except more of the same. And then I started on a new path, but I was me with everything I'd learned along the way.
I think it's important
forward.
to remember that too. So I just wanted to jump in there before we got too far up past that point I wanted to jump in on. But I think that's really important for people. Like my audience in particular may not necessarily have a business yet, and they may want to move completely away from what they've done before. So I think it's really great that you were able to move from, what you've done to be doing that for yourself. There's a lot of people that I work with who they don't want what they had before, or they've never done anything like what they want to do. So one of the things that's really important that you just said a minute ago is that we have a lot of wisdom that we're bringing with us from whatever we've done before. And so many of those skills are actually transferable, and we don't always see that. So you might be moving away from a career, or you may have been someone who stayed at home and looked after your children and not necessarily pursued a career, and now look down the barrel of the rest of your life, which is more than half of it for most of us. And you get to start something fresh and start a whole new chapter. And what I think is really important, and a point that I want to make here based on what you just said, is that even if you're doing something you've never done before, there's still going to be a whole lot of wisdom based on all the things you've been through in your life that are going to be transferable skills. And I think as much as it's important to figure out what we want and what's important to us, it's also important to uncover what we're good at, innately good at, because then we can start to really make a decision about what we're going to move into and what business we want if we want a business. It's not going to feel like work if it's something that you're already good at.
You think mothers, often think, well, I've just been looking after my kids. It's like, well, hang on, you have been a project manager on steroids. Like, you've literally been managing multiple people's lives with all the different things going on. And I don't think that we put enough respect or value into those skills that you learn, because you're not only managing them, you're also coaching them, you're mentoring your kids. You actually have grown so many skills that you wouldn't even realize, because it's just labeled as mum.
Exactly. That's right.
That's just such a simple example, but there's so much there.
Yeah. So one of the things I love about the way that you expressed what you help people do is you talk about like being magnetic and attracting the right clients, and how you help people with that. So what, in your opinion, and not necessarily from a business perspective, but just from a overall kind of life thing, that's really technical term, but you know what I mean, like overall, what makes us magnetic? Whether it's business, whether it's you as a person, in your opinion, like what makes us magnetic?
Love this question. And because it's not just about business, that's obviously what I talk about, because it's what I'm doing, but it's the same in all aspects of your life, with your friends in particular, people that can choose to be in a relationship with you or not. Usually your family, they are your family, you don't often get to choose, but we as humans, so we are magnetic, we are energetic beings, and magnetic means that there are two forces at play always. You attract at the same time as repelling. You can't have one without the other. And of course, you can imagine in business, this gets hard for people, because people are always like, well, I just want to attract everyone. And I'm like, you can't do that unless you're repelling people. So who do you want to repel? And they're like, I don't want to repel anyone. I'm like, well, then you're not attracting anyone, because you have no energetic force field. And the stronger the more that you get clear on what you want to repel, the easier it is to attract what you want and what is aligned to you. So it's like a two-part piece. And sometimes it's actually easier to answer the question of, what don't I want? What don't I like?
So
who do
true.
I not want to attract? Because you can go, well, I know straight away it's not this and it's not that. It's like, that often becomes an easier question to start with. And once you're doing that, it makes life easier for you because you're kind of cutting off all of these pieces on the outside, and it helps you kind of get a little bit closer to the middle. But still within that middle piece, there's the nucleus. And that's where we really want to get clear on, well, what is it that you actually want? It might be even about a job or a company that you want to work with. It might be about friendships. It might be relationships. If you're looking for a new partner, you might sort of be like, well, I get on with everyone. And I've had clients that have said that to me, like, well, I just love working with everyone. And I'm like, well, that might be on the surface level, but just think about the clients that you work with. Are there some that have felt really easy? Like you didn't have to work hard at the relationship. It was super easy. You had a connection that was more than just a working relationship. Like you had a deeper connection. They value you. You valued them. There was nothing hard about it. It just felt like, does it get to be this easy? Amazing. And like, guess what? They get the best results. And it's the same with friendships. And you might even start to think the more you get aware of and present to your own values and actually living to your values and in alignment with that, you will automatically be starting to repel people that are not aligned with those because they're not feeling the vibe that you're giving off. And you'll also be attracting the people who are aligned with it. And you'll notice that might have happened. I think we can all reflect back and think about friendships that we've had that have just sort of like drifted off, and other ones that we brought in, and ones that we've had for forever. Like I've got friends I've been friends with since before I started school. So I was like at kindy, my kindy friends, I'm still friends with them. Now there's a couple of very special people, and we know that we'll always be friends because we've just got that deep connection and we're in alignment with each other. Even if we don't talk for like 4 or 5 years, which happens all the time, and then we like reconnect and it's all the same. But it's like that to me is the core piece of this magnetism and understanding that we are energy. And so if we're in a place where we're actually just trying to be vanilla because we're trying to be acceptable to everyone or pleasing to everyone, we're actually being pleasing to no one. We're just in this place of like blah. And you're feeling blah because you're really not in your authority. You're not in your, and I say authority in the terms of like not authoritative, but you're not you're not really, you're not stepped into that power that comes from within you, and only you can have that for you. And it's not about the external. We're often looking for the external to be like, well, what should I be? How should I present? And what do people like? And like, well, that's what's on trend right now. So that's what, therefore, I should do. And it's all like this external validation and external stimuli that we're using to dictate how we should be. And it's like, but then are you really being true to you? Yes. So just because that is what's in fashion right now, well, if it doesn't feel like it's you, why do it?
100%.
Build yourself, build your brand, build whatever it is based on the core of you, because that is what people are actually going to feel. They're going to feel it. They're not really going to know that they feel it, but they will feel it. Whereas when you've created this like face or external view based on what you think is going on outside and what other people want, it's just like you've put a great big mask on or a mirror, and they're just seeing what else they're seeing out there. They're not actually seeing the real you. And so to have the courage to step into that, I think is the key.
Yeah. Oh, speaking my language now, like definitely. And that's what I was hoping you would say because I believe that too. I think that we do need to understand as much of what we don't want as what we do want. It's that polarization. Not everyone is going to love you, and that is okay. And guess what? You can't serve the whole world anyway. You're one person. Like, how are you going to do that? There's got to be, a balance of the people that you attract and the people that you repel. I love that, by the way. I've never really thought about it in that sense, but it's so true. Yeah. And so, I think for me, like I grew up wanting to please everybody, and I definitely started my business out like that until I learned this. What I think is really, really cool is that when you create that way, when you create your life that way, and it doesn't matter what area we're looking at, like you said, but when you show up as you and you start making choices that feel good for you and are aligned with you, and you don't worry about what you're repelling, You actually create the ultimate, what I call ultimate freedom. My business is called Free to Be You. This podcast is called Free to Be You. That is the definition of it. It's like you don't have to pretend. You don't have to think about what you're doing. You just do it. And it just feels, it doesn't even feel like work. And your relationships don't feel like work. You get to just be, and it's the most freeing feeling ever. So I love that. And I love that that's something that you are keeping in mind when you're doing the work that you do, because there are a lot of business coaches out there. There are a lot of marketing coaches out there. There's a lot of different ways of looking at things. And the reason I wanted to have you on the show today is because I know how aligned we are in that view. So you knew I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
But I love that that is genuinely your answer, and that you approach it that way. So with the biggest thing that I want to drive home out of this conversation, what about you? Is there anything else that you think that's a really important takeaway here?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, like, as you were talking then, like probably just the example of how you live into this and what it looks like in real life. I mentioned before about my story and why I started my business. And when I started it, I think I'd asked myself some of these questions, which I think sometimes we can miss. But I was like, what are the things that I really want? What are my goals? And number one was to be able to live at the coast, live where I wanted to live. Number two was to be able to travel. And number three was to not be working long hours, to have total flexibility in my time. And it was amazing because at the time I started it, we were living in Brisbane. We weren't living on the coast. And within 18 months, we had moved to the coast. We were actually already there. That was the whole purpose of it. And then the travel. So it's amazing because I guess one of the other things I wanted to bring in was when you set what that intention is, you're going to be amazed at how quickly you achieve it. And that it's not when I get to this level, then I'll have those things. It's like, no, you can start having it right now. Actually being clear on what you want and being open to the possibility, and you'll be amazed at how quickly that happens. And that, I was like, well, I'm actually living the things that I said that I wanted to now. It's not, I don't have to wait until I've got to whatever point it is or something's finished, because when we think about it, your business, your life, there is no end until it ends. It is an evolution and a continuation. And even though you might set milestones, when you get there, there's going to be a new one. So don't just wait until you've got to some milestone. Why not have it now? Why not do it now? And when you get really clear on that, and I think that being around 40 is when I believe you've had enough life experiences and things that you can kind of say, look, I don't want that. I'm not here for that. I'm not willing to allow those sort of things into my life. You kind of get, I think, a little bit ballsy around 40, which is a great time to make some of those decisions. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that.
I think the thing I wanted to just say is, it is possible, and it's what's possible starts with you deciding what you want.
Yeah, and you're right. And, you mentioned earlier about the universe, like you get tested when you make a decision. It's the same the other way around. I can totally agree with you there that the momentum that comes out of choosing yourself, but also choosing things that are in alignment with what you want over and over and over, keep making choices, like keep being in alignment, momentum happens. And things start coming your way, and you start magnetizing the things that you need in order to create those results that you're choosing for yourself. I find people have trouble doing is choosing them. So thank you so much for sharing your story today. It is inspiring, and I think that there's a lot of women who, have been in that corporate space that perhaps, they want something different for the second half of their life, and you're living proof of that. So it's been awesome. And where can people get in touch with you? And, if they want to, maybe they do want to start their own thing, or they want some guidance, what would be the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on most of the social platforms, only because I've been doing this for a while. But if you want to hang out on Instagram, I'm jessica.osborn there. Yeah, I'm there. Right. And if anyone's on those, you can reach out to me. You will find me on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, of course, or on my website. So.
Perfect. I'll put all those links in the show notes underneath so that they don't have to go and like look you up. I'll make it easy for them. But I always like to ask, my guests, like, what's your favorite? Like, where's the best place? So thank you so much for coming, as I said, and coming on the show. And like I just said before, I think that the most important thing is that you choose yourself. And so if you've listened to this and you feel like somebody who would benefit from listening to what Jess has had to say today, or if you just would like to share it, we'd love that. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't already, because I do have some more amazing guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. And like I always say, choosing you means remembering that this is not a dress rehearsal. This is like the deal. Like, this is the final act, the only act. So it's time to choose you, to be the real you. And thank you for listening to the Free to Be You podcast. And I look forward to bringing you another episode next week.